Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind, and I am here to talk about the breaking news. It is Watergate. Sorry, RaptorsGate. Sorry, it is DarkoGate. With that being said, the Raptors are in a lot of trouble. Sorry, I actually did not choose this hat on purpose, people. Um, just happened to be the first hat that I chose. But with that being said, I'm here to talk about the alleged um, I guess let's just call it the alleged actions that the Raptors have recently taken in I guess misappropriating certain corporate documents, certain documents that are owned by the New York Knicks. So a lawsuit was filed in New York against the MLSC organization as a whole. NBA franchise to NBA, organization, and essentially it alleges that there are several people that are involved on the Raptors side, including a individual who is a former video coordinator from the Knicks, known as I'll just say his last name because I'm not going to be the best at pronouncing, but Azatam, and he corresponded with several other people, including potentially Darko Rajakovic, as well as 13 named John Does, one of which his name, I believe, is Noah Lewis. And so, for that reason, we're basically going to go over some of these things and give our thoughts. Um, Anyone, the floor is yours. First and foremost, how are you guys? Because I know you guys aren't dealing with any lawsuits, I'm assuming. So, yeah.
Well, I'm doing okay. I'm definitely doing better than some Raptor employees are right now. That's for sure.
You look like
Um,
you're prepping for an interview, for just in case.
I am prepping always to make the next draft choice for a team.
Will we have draft choices to make?
We might not. So
Oh boy, all I'd say is, man, they one thing with this organization, man, the last couple of years, man, they is never dull. You know, most people can just call when the off season comes around, to curl up in their bed and call it a day. Not the Raptors. Each week there's comes something new. And even this week started off being like pretty quiet. It's like, okay, all the Siakam rumors died down, OG rumors died down, Size out doing his after thing, cool. Everyone's doing what they usually do. And here we go. It's like, oh no, hold on, hold my beer. The Raptors say we ain't done just yet. I got some more stuff for you to talk about. It's never ending with this franchise at this point, man. Never ending.
I mean, before JD goes, I'll just say, Masai did say, "Don't put your phone down." Uh, I'm assuming this isn't what he meant, but
Following through on that one pretty well. This case,
yeah, he did. He blew all of our expectations out of the water. That is for sure.
absolutely, JD.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what to say. Like I'm just minding my own business like this week, just trying to pass the summer like quietly, right? And then like we get this bombshell. And at first I thought it was like fake news or somebody pulling my leg. And going through that document, oh my God. I think that's a highlight of my summer.
Yeah,
Please don't tell these things, man.
the Curb Your Enthusiasm music just keeps rolling in my head
Yeah.
every single time I think of the Raptors. It's just like my goodness. Um, So yeah, just to kind of get into it, there was about three over 3,000 documents, over 3,300 actually documents that were passed over. So basically, it's imagine taking like a physical server out with you, practically. And these documents were accessed about 2,000 times. At the time, the main person, the video coordinator, Azatam, was actually still working for the Knicks, and he seemed to continue to forward things to his new Raptors personal email, which had his name also attached to it. And he was not very clever with the subject lines either, where it's literally outlining exactly what it is, where it's like the synergy password or whatever. I guess to really jump into it, we really don't know the extent of what people know. That will, what we do know is that the MLSC as well as the Knicks are currently doing their respective investigations. I will say that in terms of the discovery process of that, I wouldn't expect to see this take as long as, for example, the same case that happened last year. Not the same case, but the case that happened last year with the Boston Celtics and Ime, just because it's a different type of case. So I think that when you have a lot of documents and this type of paper trail, and frankly, a person that left a lot of breadcrumbs, it's not really hard to figure out where the gingerbread house is, and go from there. Any thoughts from there?
I just think this, like, I think offline we were talking about it before the podcast started. Is like the word I just keep thinking is bush league, or the phrase bush league. Like this is like I'm sorry, man. Like this is dumb. I'm sorry. Like you can't find another word around it. Like I'm just, you can sugarcoat it all you want. Like this is actually the height of stupidity. All right. Like, like people in this case that take pens and mugs when they leave the thing here have more sense of how they do it than this do. Like seriously, 3,300, and then pretty much put a big sign on the back of your back saying, "Hey, it's me, guys," and I'm sending it off to like about multiple people and the other organization I'm coming to. Now, the question I have to ask is, at some point in this case, we have to ask. I think the question, I'll give you the opportunity, Coach, to give your Nixon Watergate moment, of the key two quick questions for you political historians, but I go from a standpoint of like, what is the incentive of him to do so, Mr. Azatam? Like, what, did you just wake up that morning and say, you know what, I'm going to grab about 3,300 files in this case and flip them over to the Raptors? Like, that's the part that's in this thing that, that I don't think so far, the Raptor press and, the Raptors, of course, are going to deny it, but the Raptor press aren't really probing those questions. What, you just woke up one morning and you was going to leave the Knicks, say, you know what, I think it would be a good idea. Let me just grab all these files here and just send them off to the Raptors. You don't do those type of things without some type of like assurances or some wink, like, yeah, it's okay to do so. That's all I'm saying. I ain't telling you who's doing it, but I don't think he just did a whim. Hey guys, let me get you in my good graces. You have the job, so what good graces you need to get into? It's like, so.
Oh, I mean, I'm just thinking like he might as well, because he accessed it 2,000 times after the initial time. So he might as well have just like went to the printer, right? Printed all the stuff, had a big, huge suitcase with all the stuff, and lugged the suitcase out. Say, hey, what are you going in? Don't worry about me, man.
That's the funny thing that's interesting. And I mean, following the details and where the evidence leads to, if there is a pause on when he actually accessed the stuff, did someone come back to him with some type of thing offline somewhere else that's not in a communication? Say, hey, man, can you get us X, Y, and Z instead? Or also? And then he went back in to get the remainder stuff. Because that's just on the description, it feels like that would be a natural way of why he stopped after the first set and then came back again the second set. Like if you already took 1,000 out, I would say, okay, we're out in this case. But then you went back for another 2,000 plus. So what would be encouraging to go back to get another 2/3 more of what you end up with your haul? Somebody or some type of initiative triggered him to go back in again.
Well, and at some point as a video coordinator, you'd think that you would have seen the plays a number of times, that you wouldn't need to see said plays multiple more times.
And I don't want to let the gentleman jump in, but that then goes back to incentive of why he's doing it.
I think. Oh, sorry, Beyond, go for it.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think what kind of irritates me about this whole thing is how, according to the lawsuit, the Raptors employees directed Azatam to misuse his access to the Synergy Sports subscription. Do you really need that to know how many times Julius Randle works the pick and roll on the left-hand side of the floor? Do you really need to know the tendency of these players, who goes right, who goes left, who jab steps right, who jab steps left? Like, isn't this the job of the scouting department of the Toronto Raptors? You don't need Synergy Sports for this.
I mean, don't we have our own data?
That's what the next point I'm getting to as well. We have this giant jumbotron in the OVO complex that tracks the latest analytic data out there for sports. But we're going to use someone's Synergy subscription to get, 3,000 files to know how many times Julius Randle goes left or right. Really?
I can tell you that from Kentucky, how many times he goes left. It's like,
Yes.
it's not hard to figure
how many
out.
times he goes left? 99% of the time he goes left. Right?
I mean, didn't we get IBM Watson a couple years ago? To your point, Coach. I'm not even joking. Like I remember us getting some sort of like proprietary like AI software with like IBM Watson or whatever that we partnered with.
Oh, maybe so. I don't know. I'm just like, it's just like Beyond said. This is just very Bush League stuff. If true, if this what has come out is true, like, and Beyond was referring to a point earlier about Watergate. What did Darko know, and when did he know it? Mm-hmm. That's the whole essence of this in Darko's case, because he's on the lawsuit. His name, him and Noah Lewis.
Yeah, to me, the lawsuit is about like the Knicks trying to get to the point where, okay, we know that this guy did something, but like, are the Raptors really behind this? Did they compel this guy to do this, like whatever stupid things that he allegedly did in favor of a job? Right? Like, I think that's a bigger problem right there, right? And for them to for them to get to this point, they have to drag somebody. They have to drag Darko. They have to drag certain people so that an investigation could happen. The only thing is, looking at the documents, I mean, they have some wild accusations, but there seems to be no proof, no actual proof.
Let me ask you guys some just before Beyond speaks here, just so I understand this correctly. So his final day working as a member of the New York Knicks, says on the article I'm reading, is August 14th. And he had sent these emails and proprietary information August 11th. So in a way, he probably broke contract by sending all this information. And then two, he did it while still an employee of the Knicks.
Yes. But JD hits on the other question, which is the same thing you mentioned with your questions, Coach, is like, what's the incentive for him to do so?
Yeah.
By August 11th, he has the job. What are you trying to prove in this case at this point? And who's asking them? As I said before, he just doesn't wake up out of bed all of a sudden and says, I'm going to take 3,000 files in this case here. I know, from a Raptor standpoint, you can say, okay, you can play devil's advocate and say, well, there's no there in this case here. But I guess I could flip it the other way and ask, okay, fine. Why would he, in this case, email Darko and whomever else he's emailing without some type of wink that it's all good in this case here? Just out willy-nilly, out the blue, just emailing them? And the fact in this case here, if you know it's a paper thread, and you know it's a thread, anyone knows in this case you send an email, it's recorded in this case here. So I'm sure Darko knows this as well. Now, he could have played it one way and say, you know what, I'm just not going to respond and be cute about it and say, I didn't respond to anything. But you could also be proactive and say, like, what the hell are you sending me this information for?
It's like, hey, man, I just got a bunch of emails from you.
What the hell is this?
It's like, how many? It's like,
right.
Listen, JD, I did you get the 2,000 emails that he sent? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like,
all went to spam.
Yeah, like at some point it's like, yo, this dude's sending a lot of emails and he just got here.
That's the point I'm getting at, right? Because if you just respond and say, you know what, you're dark, or say, yo, dude, we don't run this type of operation. You need to come to my office at 9 o'clock immediately and we discuss this. And if that's in an email paper trail or email trail, this lawsuit is on this one dude and he's fired and he's moved on. But the fact that they didn't respond to me is actually more incriminating than if they did respond. Because at least if they did respond with some type of forcefulness, say, hey, you know what? No, dude, we don't do this type of stuff. What is this? There's nothing. Which in a way feels a little greasy in this case. Like, well, very non-committal answer. Like, well, I mean, I just saw the stuff there. I didn't do anything about it. Oh, I just happened to peek at it, but I had no clue what it was about. Like, it just comes off really greasy. And it's like, yo, guys, man, like, come on, man. You're trying to be slick by half, man.
And the problem is, it's just like anything else that the Raptors have done over the past couple years. I'm sorry, people. I am a Raptors fan, but like this front office has done a lot of half measures. It's the same thing. It's like they're not even doing this right? Where it's like, okay, I'm gonna read out just some thing. Forwarded email. Denver Advanced Scout Report in capital letters. It's like, really? Like, can you not? I don't know.
League. And but this
say it's something else, grandma's pictures, you know, or something like that. I don't know, you know, it like something. And it's just, I get the synergy thing. I did hear a few other media members basically outline that it's not that big of a deal, and in terms of like what was taken, it may not be that big of a deal. It's not medical records or anything as far as we know. You know, it was primarily video stuff. But with that being said, it still doesn't look good at all. And so I don't buy the excuse of saying, oh, it's not that big of a deal because it's just it's whatever, versus, you know, this gross incompetence, to put it simply, on the part of this, at bare minimum, this individual. So we'll definitely find out. The other thing that I'll say is the synergy stuff. Are the Raptors so cheap that we can't afford synergy login? Like, I'm dead serious. I'm not even like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but like, I'm sure that there's different tiers. I know the basic tier is what, $39.99 US. I mean,
well, it looks like the corporate one is $5,000.
Okay, so the corporate one's $5,000. Last time I checked, they just raised ticket prices. Okay,
which is what, 50 cents to a common person.
Yeah, exactly.
5,000 to them, 50 cents to me, to you or me.
Yeah, it's not hurting their pocketbook to pay for the dude to get some access. And I'm sure that they, you know, them being the Raptors, they should be able to get the access. Also, in terms of, if I don't think it's about the Knicks plays, but I mean, we just had Nurse Thibodeau just leave. So at some point, you'd think at least use his access and download his plays to see what he did.
As Coach said, it's not like they're picking like the Warriors, you know, playbook, or even like say something like Ty Lue or something that can have some creative stuff. No, they're just like grabbing, like, what, the Knicks? Like, really, Thibodeau?
Yeah. Go watch a Raptors game and a Knicks game. And count how much ISO ball you're gonna see.
Oh my gosh! I think the thing that's actually most harmful about this, besides what the punishment might come from it, because I don't think that this is going to be something where we just wipe our hands, the guy gets fired, and we just move on type of thing. I think that the Raptors still going to get hit. And I don't know if you want to discuss what that potentially might be, because right now, I think we said offline, we don't have the full discovery yet. We don't have all the evidence yet. We don't know who those 10 other people are, or the double, you know, where is they think 10 or 11 people that they haven't named yet. Who are those people?
Right? Yes. So that's the other thing, and that I really want to get into is like, the league hasn't been involved yet. Now, the league just dealt with another investigation with a player and a GM on another team. Hello, nurse. How's your house doing? Ours is burning down too. But at the same time, I could see the league getting involved with this, because I don't think that they want a whole bunch of lawsuits going around between two different parties of the NBA. It's not a good look. So I could see the league getting involved. With that being said, do you want to talk about the Joe Smith thing that happened with, or
yeah, we could discuss that. I mean, of what the worst scenario could be in this case. I just say we're not. I'm just saying the NBA is not the NFL where they're suing each other all the time. I just want to say owners. That's a normal thing in the NFL. But the NBA is not necessarily the same thing. But yeah, we get the Joe Smith, because I know you want to kind of lay it out to everybody, you know, for some of our younger viewers in this case. So.
Yeah, I mean, so I won't really remember the timeline or anything as much.
Yeah,
but
so
yeah, I'll let you go for it.
Sure. So Joe Smith, who was the number 1 pick overall, and he was a pretty good player, power forward, kind of actually ahead of his time. He's kind of a guy that you would see today. So think of like bit more like an Evan Mobley type in this case, slim, stuff like that, but a little more skilled offensively. probably not as good defensively at the beginning as Mobley, but really skilled offensively, put the ball on the ground the whole nine. Joe Smith, obviously, in this case here, top pick. They already picked up Garnett, so they had these kind of these slim towers that they were working in this case here with Minnesota. His contract, because of how the CBA was working in this case here, he had all these like a certain type of deals, and it came up now for his renegotiation, his free agency. And Minnesota was a bit of a bind because in this case, they were trying to find ways in this case they would retain him. Now, he had signed off on a deal with another team. I can't remember who it was. Somehow I think it was the Warriors. And then he kind of reneged on the deal, and then he went back to Minnesota. And then they found out there were some shady dealings with Minnesota. I guess in this case here with the GM at the time, which was Kevin McHale. And I guess ownership was involved in this because of a big move in this case with Glenn Taylor. And they found out that Minnesota didn't play fair ball in this case from a free agent standpoint. So the league in this case, and now mind you, this is the Stern years, so you know how it's going to go down. And so initially they dropped the hammer on Minnesota with 5 first-round draft picks gone, including fines as well, monetary fines, as well as a year suspension by Kevin McHale and Glenn Taylor, the owner. After the fallout of that, it's interesting to see how Minnesota decided to kind of move on after that situation. That's 2001, I believe. So in the following years, Minnesota, obviously with Garnett now looming as a free agent himself, they started getting very aggressive in this case because they knew they didn't have many draft picks coming up. And they traded for Sam Cassell in 2003, and they traded for Latrell Sprewell in 2004. And I believe 2004, they ended up getting to the Western Conference Finals, which is the furthest they've ever been as a franchise until, up to now, they still haven't gotten that far. So it's interesting to see how things played out from a franchise and a team, how they decided to go ahead with it. Eventually, they cut it down to 3 draft picks. I think you mentioned Kenya after, I guess, arbitration.
Yeah, they reduced it after some time.
Yeah, some time. So, but 3 is still pretty rough. Now, to say that hurt the Minnesota franchise, yes, it did to some extent. I think more incompetence later on actually, prolonged their path in the wilderness. But I think that is a telling way of how you can actually go about it if Silver drops the hammer on the Raptors in some form or fashion. Now, it may not be, but he might be also wanting to kind of send a message like, listen, man, we're not doing this in this league. And that could be an incentive to say, like, if I catch anyone you guys doing this again, this is what you're going to get. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out from that perspective. I think it's also interesting to see how, at the time, the fallout in this case here was a 1-year suspension for both the owner and the GM. Keep that in mind now when we're dealing with some of the parties involved. I think some of the more smaller fish, like Mr. Azatam, he probably just won't have a job. He's a videographer. With all due respect, adios. When it's all said and done. Now the other folks, depending on who they are, if it's assistant coaches, wherever the case may be, certain key executives in the organization, that will be interesting to see. And of course, the head coach was the biggest one. And what type of, if it comes out, I find it hard to believe I find it hard to believe Darko walks away with this clean. I'm just being honest with you. I don't see it. And I don't know what that suspension is going to look like, but I think the other part of it is how, and I'll throw this at you guys. The biggest thing about this whole thing to me is it hurts Darko's credibility as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. You guys tell me if I'm too harsh, but
no. I thought so I'll just say right now we don't know. I just want people to be clear. We're not accusing anyone of anything, but it ain't looking good at the same time. The blank does actually stink here. Now, with that being said, in terms of your last points, I do want to get into what we can do, but we'll get to that near the end. But what could happen if the NBA gets involved, which they probably will get involved, and the Raptors are found to have done certain things? Like you said, it's probably going to be picks, and then at the very bare minimum, depending on how high up it goes, if it's the coaching staff, you're going to see because we're talking about 13 people, so I don't know if those were other video coordinators, other people on the coaching staff. Like you said, it could be executives. Ed Rogers is not very happy right now with that entire front office. So pick, if it's the coach, probably not saying all gone, but a lot of people gone. You might keep Jama if he's not involved at all. If he didn't, maybe he was left off the mailing list, right?
So whoever's on vacation.
Yeah, whoever's on vacation. Yeah, exactly. So hopefully, a
I'll be
lot of them are
glad.
doing Giants of Africa work right now.
I'm not checking my email. I'm on vacation, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's the thing. You can see when emails were read or not read or whatever in general. So,
Yeah.
It's something that I think if it has anything to do with any executive, the easiest thing is probably to clear house. I'm just trying to outline to you, the audience, how it works. Not saying that this is what will for sure happen.
Let's get to a closer, more recent example, right? And we're just going to go back to like 2-3 years ago, the 76ers. Colangelo get caught here pretty much using burner accounts in this case online, sending all sorts of information. I can't believe it's one of the stupidest ways I've ever seen a guy get fired in my life. He and the missus, I think, I don't know, I don't want to cast aspersion to her, but I think the missus was involved too, I think. And they were sending out all sorts of things about players and stuff like that via some fake Twitter account that I can't believe some random ringer guy ends up finding out, like, wait, what's going on here? So, and they cleared house on that. Think about that. That was it seems quaint now, and you kind of laugh like, really? But that they cleared all of them out. Okay. And that was on that. That wasn't taking any sort of information data from another team. So just to keep respect to your point, that was on that.
And Colangelo was in good standing with that organization at that time, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
One of the golden children of the NBA, man.
Yeah, because of his dad. Yeah.
Automatically, like it's like, give me a break. Like his firstborn probably got a job already in this league already. It's like you're Colangelo. Like, so for them to do that, it had to be bad in this case here.
Now, I'll tag in JD and Coach on this before I continue. So, any thoughts on what we've discussed thus far for that point?
I want to take it to the other side of the spectrum where, like, these are heavy allegations, right? And I want to give, like, at least for now, like the Raptors defendants, except for Azotam, right? I want to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. And the burden of proof lies on the accusers, right? Looking at the documents, like some of the evidence that they have, some of the receipts that they have, they're like circumstantial or like in a way, they're kind of like jumping to conclusions, right? Like, for example, like, you could send me an email, but if I don't open it, right, does that mean that I know the details of it? Right? So they're going to have to work
you can
hard.
look at the subject line, but I hear
you. You could look at the subject line. If you see, like, what do you call that? Like Pacers Game 82, that looks like a phishing email, But yeah, I mean, like, they would have to prove, and like the good thing about it is everything is digital. Like, they should be able to find out whether like certain people are guilty of things. There are 12 accused, right? And we know of 3. We know Darko, Azotam, and Drew Jones, like one of the new assistant coaches, right? Based on the email that was provided. And oh, by the way, Ujiri at TorontoRaptors.com. I guess that's the email that you guys should be emailing right now, based on the naming convention. Yeah, I'm getting lost here. Yeah, I mean, out of those people, like, I'm pretty sure like some of those people might be involved in some way, like, but like, I don't think we're gonna get to a point where what do you call that? Like, we're gonna have to clear house, right? Because like I said, not everybody is as stupid as what this guy did, right? Yeah. Especially if you're good at doing this, like shady things, how to cover your ass.
I'll just play devil's advocate. I said before, we don't know who the 10 are yet. We don't know what part of the organization the 10 are from. Mm-hmm. And the second part is we don't know in this case here, and the Raptors could do that quite simply. Their IT guy could just figure out who opened up the emails.
Yep.
It should take no more than about 20 minutes.
You know who's not part of the 10? Masai Ujiri because he's not checking his email. He's somewhere right now.
Like, yeah, he's out in Africa
This is
right
what
now.
I was gonna get at too. Is just like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
And something tells me because of Masai's dislike of the Knicks and the Knicks' dislike of Masai, I bet his name would be listed on there if he was if he was involved. That's
I'm
just
pretty
my
sure
guess.
they tried. They tried their best. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I'm taking the guess. The way that I kind of looked at this when you guys were talking about is like, what's the best case scenario, the likely case, and the worst case. And I'm just speaking from my perspective on this. My best case scenario is Raptors get a fine, and Mr. Azatam probably does not have a job out of all this. So that's kind of my best case that I look from this. My likely case scenario, Mr. Azatam probably does not have a job. You probably get a bigger fine, and you may have to, depending on Adam Silver's how much he wants to crack down on this, you might have to give up a draft pick or two. Because he might, I can understand his perspective on that too. Like, you don't want this to happen with other teams. Worst case scenario, first round picks, massive fine, and Darko gets a massive suspension and or firing. That's the worst case scenario for me.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that the suspension with Darko is probably depending if he is found to have been complicit in this, it would be the more likely case, actually, even more so than draft picks.
Well, that's I keep going back to the incentive of what is. I understand JD's point. It's pretty much you're right. In this case here, the accusers in this case have to prove the case against the Raptors. I understand it from a legal standpoint, but when that discovery starts happening, they start talking to Mr. Azatam, and he starts giving us like, well, I spoke to so and so told me that if I could get some data about this and that and next thing, because believe me, folks are gonna start squawking in like no one's business, like parakeets, real quick, and then we're gonna find out in this case here who told whom what and who told whom when, and for them to have such assurances, which means to tell me in this case here, someone's already talked to somebody because they got 10 people plus the coach and this other dude. That means some information has already passed to the Knicks. So the Knicks ain't just doing this willy-nilly just to waste people's time in the court. So that tells me they already done some due diligence with their own security people and own investigation. So the Raptors have to do theirs and find out okay, who knew about this? Who didn't know about this? I want to know every individual that had some idea about this inkling, because I have a sneaking suspicion that of those 10 there, I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of coaches are on that list. Because I understand, because logic would dictate if we're going to use it for, I ain't trying to put this, but just here with me, guys. I'm not saying this for the Raptors, but in a mafia trial, right? If you were a little fish and they catch you on the hook, and they get you on the hook giving stuff to the big fish, there's no way the lieutenants underneath there are not implicated somehow if you already have the big fish on the line as well too. That's very hard to do that in any sort of be it RICO case, you name it. I ain't naming no names of anybody at this point, but it's very difficult to say, it's just him. Two of them were just talking in the garage. I don't think so, man. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Usually there are a lot of layers to get up to that guy that you can actually go and send something and feel confident to send it to that guy.
So are you suggesting that Azatam felt like he declassified these documents?
I feel he felt very comfortable to talk to the big guy. Let's put it that way. And that's my theory. I'm sorry. I don't have to be in New York court to do that. I'm just looking at it from pure logic and the streets logic. If you're sending an email with all these people and you got the big fish on there, there's been a lot of discussions happening for the big fish to feel comfortable to receive the email. Because if you just get a job, think about this. You just got a job for this company. If you say something like that to big fish, and it already a bit greasy. Like, come on. You're the most brazen individual ever. Or you got a wink from somebody that you can send to the big guy. I'm just saying.
It can be something as stupid as, okay, so I'm starting on a new job doing something similar and I don't want to reinvent the wheel, so I'm just gonna copy and paste,
Well,
and build my files on the other environment
2,000 times.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to think, like, who would I send that to if I was him? I'm probably not going to send it to the executive branch, so that's Masai. And I'm sending it probably to coaching staff.
But this
Why
goes
would?
back to the question: why
Yes,
would you think you can send it to the coaching staff? That is the question, right? You don't just
Yeah.
go you just get a new job and say, "I'm going to send 3,000 files to you of all the stuff the Knicks have just out of the blue," knowing full well that you read a contract. Knowing in this case, heck, if you leave Burger King, as I said before, and for any sort of job, they tell you, some of these companies say, "Hey, you can't go and work for McDonald's for 6 months." like, come on.
Well, the guy could be bragging, right? Like he's like, you know what? Like we swept the freaking Nuggets, right? Like we're gonna hang a banner about that, right? And you know who did the scouting for that? Me, right? And I'm gonna show you, right? These
Okay.
are things that I did.
So to your point, the bragging scenario, then it would be his buddies, his drinking buddies. You would send that to. You don't send it to the head coach of your new team.
Maybe they're drinking buddies.
No, that's what the Knicks. That's what the Knicks are alleging. Like that's what they're
Yeah,
saying.
the Knicks are a legend,
Right?
but we already know in this case, Darko received the emails. So there's not like if Darko got blocked, and it's like there's a theory he might have sent the emails to Darko. They already know he sent the emails to Darko.
I'm just thinking, you just got hired, right? You're still in a probationary phase, and you show up
Yes.
with a big ass USB thumb drive, right? And you're like, "Ka-king," right? And you're like, "Hey guys, check this out," right? Like that's what it feels like. And
He's no 18-year-old intern in this case that doesn't know how to get around corporate America.
no, and even them, like you should know better. You
Know better.
trust me, I've been there
Sorry,
before.
Raptor
I knew
fans,
better.
man, but we could do it nice and straight laced like Law and Order and have the ding and put
Yeah.
and say, hey, you know what? They must prove in this case here. Fine, first thing is civil, so I don't have to be
Yeah, that's the other thing I was gonna say is that with civil, there's a much lower burden of proof that you have to show for damages and stuff like
I
that.
can cast as much aspersions as I like. It's civil in this case here is like, my theories. Let's put it that way. Alleged in this case here, what's going on. But I find it very strange, man. I'm sorry. Like, it just defies logic to me.
I'll say one other thing really quickly. And just to go back to the other cases, ignore Imes, because I think that is special because he had just went to the finals. In general, if you get in trouble with this type of stuff, it is such a tarnishing reputational hit that, we talked about before, Kevin McHale never was a GM again.
That's right. And he had to take a head coaching job, which obviously
Took a head coaching job, and that was it.
The last time he got a head coaching job as well, too.
Darko is a head coach. If he is at all, and I hope not, people, for his sake, because this will be, although this is still incompetence, but he will not get a chance again.
It's happening, man. I mean, we go through different things. I'm not saying there's all these debates in this case. What happened in Golden State with Mark Jackson, and what happened there,
yes,
and Scalabrini, but
yes.
Here last time we checked, neither of them are coaching right now in the NBA. Right? They're still around. They're still around the game, but neither of them are coaching. Same thing goes with Colangelo. We just discussed, and as I said before, that Colangelo name the NBA is pretty much like mint in this case here. And if he can't get a job and anyone's not willing to give him a break, and they got more connections, we know that they can shake a stick at. What does that say? Even the Ime one, the tax and thing on Ime in this case here. I mean, let's face it. He ain't rolling up here taking a Clippers or the Lakers job in this case here, man. He
still had to sit out a year, right?
A year, right? And the job he could only really get was Houston. No disrespect to Rocket fans, but it ain't like the glory days, man. This ain't Clutch City days. I'm just saying. It's like that's what they had to get in this case here. That was, and it wasn't like I had a whole bunch of other people. I don't think Phoenix was interested in him, and he would be a good fit for Phoenix. You think about it. But none of those teams in this case here wanted to touch him. Houston's desperate enough,
or even the Bucks. The Bucks would have been a decent team, but
they didn't want to touch him.
JD, thoughts? And I'll go to Coach.
Oh, I actually just want to add one last thing, because Coach mentioned the potential scenarios. Like, there's one thing that we actually should consider, which is most likely they're probably going to settle, and it's just going to be purely monetary, and it's just like kind of like an IP whatever lawsuit, right?
There is one element to consider that we haven't discussed.
I agree with you, and that's the most likely scenario from this case.
Mm-hmm.
But if the NBA gets involved, there's no settling.
Yeah, and I'm not even going there.
I was gonna ask if you were gonna go there or not, but yeah.
Well, no, I'm just talking about the team that you picked. All right, you got one of the pettiest owners you could imagine. Okay, you really think James Dolan gonna sit that let that slide? Man, kicked out Charles Oakley out of a game in this case because Oakley was upset with how the team was playing. You think he's gonna let this slide with how the Raptors and the Knicks have been over the years? Nah, man, blood must be shed. I'm sorry, he ain't letting that slide. He's just not.
Coach, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just with that whole Raptor Nick rivalry that dates back 25 years almost, to this whole Masai era with the Bargnani trade and the almost Lowry trade that happened. Yeah, I agree with Beyond this. He's out for blood on this one. But kind of like what JD said to me, if they settle, just it's strictly monetary, I would consider that best case scenario. If I don't have to forfeit picks, if I don't have to give my new head coach a 10, 25, a year long suspension from this, consider that a win.
And I would say if the settlement does happen, then I think the commission is involved in that, is trying to smooth that out as best as possible. I think they discuss that and say, hey, man, let's just try to make this go away as best we can. You're going to get dinged in this case, the Raptors, but let's just try to settle this. And he might be the only person that might be able to get it, because I mean, we talk about these dudes, man. Eagles like crazy, man. They ain't letting that slide like that, man.
Yeah, I think from the Masai standpoint, what I will say is this. Like I said, I don't think he's implicated in this at all. Because they would love to do that. What I will say though, and that's why I brought that up earlier, but I don't think it is that case. He might, if Darko is implicated in this and complicit, because I guess he is implicated, but if he's complicit, I don't think that this front office will have another opportunity to hire a coach again. That's what I will say. Because you can't have your hand off the wheel, because it's like, who the heck are you hiring?
Yeah, that's the embarrassment of this whole thing, right? Like if Darko actually, not just the implication, but if he's found to be complicit in some way, you spent 2 months plus looking for a coach, and this is who you brought in here, and the man hasn't even got.
Hey, man, those file transfers takes some time to get the 3,000 files.
It really is unprecedented in that sense. I know some of the guys on Spaces yesterday, but they're right. Like I can't think of that in any sport where a coach gets hired and before he even starts the season, he's in jeopardy of losing his job. Like that's a real possibility if this thing goes left. Like that should never be what you start the season. And one point I want to make too, which is when it comes to Darko, and this is where I mentioned the credibility factor. I think within the lawsuit, there's some language in there talking about how, as being a novice, right? In this case, and not knowing what he's doing, essentially, and therefore he's kind of trying to cheat on the paper. Like, what does this say? Like, how do you have credibility now with your team? When you're looking around, it's like, this dude's out here trying to get cheat notes here from the Knicks, and now we're supposed to listen to him as if it's the gospel? It gets a little hard. Because, I mean, I'll speak the coach down here, man. Trust and faith and communication. Those are some of the things you need most of the coach. And if they're out doing stuff like this, it's like, oh, you're getting cheat sheets and crib notes here from the Knicks. Maybe we should talk to Tibbs. That's what we're doing here. Maybe call Brunson on the phone and see what the deal is. I mean, he coach. Like what? That's to me the most dangerous part of all this. Whatever happens, if he survives it, is like, dude, you gotta wonder, like, is this guy like a bit of imposter syndrome? That starts getting into play, because he's talking all this stuff. Oh, we're move in 3 seconds, this and that, next thing. And the team he picks, the Knicks. Has he seen the Knicks offense?
Yeah. Or can you be so competitive where you're actually blind to the stuff like, no, you can't. This is pushing a boundary right now. You're going too far where you're more or less, it sounds like it's illegal activity that's going on right now. That's over the line. And this gets back to my point about this Synergy Sports subscription. Watch the Knicks play. You don't need to use someone's subscription
Right?
No, the
They
Knicks don't. The Knicks don't run. This isn't the Golden. This isn't the Spurs 2014 offense they're running or Golden State 2018 offense. It's very similar to the Raptors offense that we just had for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern about with this guy. That because I got to ask a question like, really, who is this guy we picked?
And where's some of the data about the Raptors?
Sorry, say again.
Like, where's some of the data from Synergy? Weren't they about the Raptors as well?
Yeah, so I actually happen to be on the thing. So it says one of the zip files had to do with passes and videos of Raptors players. That was it was individual Raptor players separated into videos of passes and videos of shots. And it was corresponding
that
positions.
didn't work. That didn't work. We should junk that.
Yeah, I was gonna say we didn't do a lot of passing.
Yeah. And that's probably 10 files. 10 files.
This is my point again. We have to go to another team to find out our bad plays. We can't watch our own plays from the season.
Ironically, did we not beat the Knicks 3-1 this year?
That's one we did.
That's one of the few things we always match up well with. That's the ironic part. So I don't even know why we need it. And you have a new coach. So therefore, wherever the shots they were getting, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. But also, like, even just from a synergy standpoint, like you're telling me, like, again, I get it what some of the Raptors media members have said, but at the same time, it's not a good look because it's like, well, at the very bare minimum, you should have your own access to synergy. There's just certain things that we're not talking about the G League here, right? We're talking about an NBA team, or the CEBL league or anything like that, like. Which I don't think that they do that. I'm not trying to accuse them of doing it, but I'm just saying, like, you would expect something like that to happen at those lower levels. At this level, it's like you gotta have, I know that there's a competitive nature. I know that certain teams steal other teams' signs and that sort of thing in other sports. It happens, but it's not just what happened; it's the way that it happened, and it's just silly.
Yes.
Jeez.
JD, any other thoughts?
I'm just I'm just fascinated by the whole story, and like I just want to see, like, because like looking at the documents, I don't really know what the Knicks end game is. They didn't really claim, like, or they didn't really specify what they want to happen. So yeah, I think this could probably drag for a few months unless like we settle right away. I think the best thing to do is to settle right away, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, from a legal standpoint, I totally agree. League standpoint, that'll be interesting to see what happens. So, we talked about a couple different scenarios that could happen. I'm not saying it'd be 5 picks or whatever. Knowing Silver, if it is any picks, if it gets to that, again, people, if it gets to that, I would expect it most likely to be seconds because that just seems to be his typical punishment for these things. But with that being said, I think if it happens, you could probably see the Raptors' hands forced from the standpoint of several things. Number one, there's certain things that you'd want to do to get the PR hit back in your favor. So this is like your splashy moves. I don't know, perhaps a free agent extension signing, things that you would rather talk about in terms of that rather than this at a upcoming media day, perhaps. Perhaps it's a trade for a superstar that might be available. Just saying. I'm not going to say which one it needs to be or which one it should be. I'm just saying that type of move might be the next move for this front office if they at all smell that, we might need to hire a new coach kind of a thing. And it's not just, a new video coordinator. Because if it's at that level, is going to be talked about. And I don't think that those are the type of questions we already know that this front office doesn't like to answer questions in the media at times, and has said exactly word for word, if I had to talk to you all the time, I'd go crazy. So yeah, any thoughts?
Well, we know that outside of Larry Tannenbaum that ownership probably is not as favorable to our front office.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? I think so. And this is just, it's just more fuel for them moving forward as well. Whether people agree with the front office or not, some of the moves, some of the inactive moves that they've made as well. So before all this, like the front office, the seats were getting warm. Now they're getting a little toasty moving forward, depending on how this year goes, maybe the next 2 years max. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. I think Ed Rogers is his whatever file that he has for Masai, it just got a couple pages longer. That's what I'll say. So yeah, and again, people, I am a Raptors fan. I think everyone here is a Raptors fan. We're just kind of here discussing the scenario, so feel free to actually comment below with that. Now, anything else that you guys want to discuss on this? This is actually it's fascinating because it's so stupid, but
Yeah, that's what's fascinating about it is because it is very stupid. And like this is like Beyond said, this is really Bush League. Just everything that has happened from this. Like it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's hard to believe that this organization in front office that prides itself into being one of the top organizations like the Spurs of the past, or the Miami Heat. Like
I
the
mean,
Raptors were there
Dad
for a very
himself,
long time.
yeah, like Dad himself said, this is a world-class organization. This is not world-class behavior.
Nope, not at all.
I would say right now, they're gonna. This actually might make a very interesting situation for how things look because they tend to do things off of public relations. But right now, their biggest right now positive for public relations right now is Pascal Siakam.
Yes.
He's the only untarnished thing right now. You go to the Wonder Kid in this case here. The bloom's a little off on Scotty. You're now bringing a new coach who's supposed to kind of give you a fresh start. Well, look what we got here. We've discussed plenty about the front office at this point. You can't really rely on Masai just doing the smile and say, hey, man, we want win. Everyone just goes, yes, Masai. Those days are done. That's right. So just keep going down the list in this case here. Bobby, forget that. Right. So just go through in this case here. The best things they have to lean on is Pascal and Grady. Essentially, that is what it is. That is it. As far as like feeling warm and fuzzy about stuff. So for them to actually consider trading Pascal might not be the wisest thing right now. Because right now, what's left back there right now is just a whole lot of Grady from a public relations standpoint. Because there ain't much else going on here. That's being honest, man. So like, I look at this team right now and it's like, yeah, you'd be wise to hold on to the star you have right now because right now you're going to need to lean on him right now to kind of get you through this mess. That's the only form of fuzzy thing that fans can remember. Oh, I remember those days. It seems so long ago. We were winning a championship and playing Eastern Conference championships. Yeah. He's really going to tie that.
And I'll also say it's kind of a positive thing to have a star sometimes who is not that vocal in the media. And who kind of keeps his head down and does his work. I know it's not what Toronto fans seem to become endeared by, but sometimes in these type of situations, that's kind of what you want.
Yep, set the tone, and that's it. I mean, we go back to the situation in Minnesota. Everything went the hell and back, but they still had Kevin Garnett. They still had the big ticket. They're gonna ride that horse all the way as they could. In this case, say, okay, we going all in, right? I think sometimes you got to look at it that way, man. Like this, as crazy as things are right now, you have one North Star in this case here, that's Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, and in the Philly case, it was Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons that you had at the time, anyway.
Yep, exactly. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how this proceeds in this case. And I think, to your point, it'll be interesting to see if you hear of extension talk in this case next week or two.
JD?
We're probably just gonna restructure Jeff Doughtin's contract to make it 2-year guaranteed to make this all these things to go away.
That's the line today.
I'm kidding. Well, Coach said toasty earlier. I think if you guys know the meme, it's fine. This is fine. I think that's Masai right now. That's how he's gonna approach the summer or the training camp. If this thing does not get resolved, which is he's going to ignore that things are happening around him, and he's just gonna do Masai things, until this gets settled.
So just to clarify, he's the dog drinking the coffee, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
He's been that for a while.
Yeah, it really has been. Yeah, the flames are getting bigger now in this case.
Yep.
Just saying, it's the perfect meme, man. It speaks. It says everything.
Mhm.
It really is. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said,
Well, there's gonna be a full Masai presser for sure to bring the positive vibes back. Like he does
I
that.
think that's a
He's
bad
good at
idea.
Mhm.
I think
He does that all the time, right?
Oh, he does. I think this is one of those times. It's not keep him in the back room. It's not a good idea, Coach.
Well, let me ask you guys something. Like training camp is coming up in, I don't know, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, something like that. Like, do you get out in front now? And I know there's an investigation, but like, this is going to come up in the training camp press conference. People are going to be asking about this whole thing if this has not been dealt with beforehand, or if they've had no presser. Like, do you get out in front of this now? Try to, like, I don't mean so much maybe this week, maybe like the next 2 weeks or something like that. Or do you hold off till training camp and maybe more information comes out, more clarity at that time? Like, what do you do from a PR standpoint?
I think right now you because your hands are tied because it's a legal situation now. So you just shut your mouth and say, like, you know what? Right now it's a legal thing. They're gonna just hide behind that. It's a legal thing. We can't discuss it. Blah 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 blah. The question I would ask if Masai is out there in this case here, if one of these knuckleheads actually ask a proper question, it'd be like, hey, have you guys done an investigation yourself? That's the question I would like to ask. I like to know an answer to. Now,
Yeah. I just don't want this to dominate the narrative of training camp, because the training camp is about, hey, let's, new coach, rookie, Scotty's new role, Pascal, all that. Like, there's just more things that are better suited to focus on, because this is going to be the narrative. I just fear that it's just going to hang over us all training camp and stuff like that. So I just hope this settles soon, whatever it is.
I think it depends on how far along they are in the case. And also it depends on if there's smells of like New York. I really mean New York. I'm talking about the head office. That there might be some type of fines and some suspensions coming down and all that sort of chatter. That's the scenario you're frightened of. Where it's like, oh, okay, Darko might get 3 months. Darko might get 6 months. Darko might get a year. That's the speculation where you don't want that. If it's like you find out, to JD's point, it's all clear, like, Darko's all good and he's just a knucklehead with a bunch of other knuckleheads doing something, you should be okay. But let me tell you something. But if it's heading upstream, watch out. Because if it's heading upstream, watch out. Because now we got a whole set of different questions to ask about, and that's what the concern. And unfortunately, because it's so close to the preseason, I don't think you're gonna get your answer at this point. I don't think you're gonna get your answers just yet.
No, yeah. I mean, I think they did the right thing by releasing a statement, the MLSE, basically saying we are going to cooperate with the Knicks and we're going to do our own investigation as well. Again, because it's an email thing, primarily.
Better how they hire their head coach.
They should start the search now. Might as well.
Yeah, you're right. At the rate they go at, you're right. You better start now, JD.
That is actually something that I would be starting to look back at, like Jordy Fernandez.
Mm-hmm.
See how he does with the upcoming tournament. See if you like some of his sets and stuff like that. Talk to some of those players, and just prepare just in case. That's all. I'm not even joking, right? Like, it's like
right now, he and RJ are having a beer, right? A chuckle. You believe this nonsense?
Yes, exactly. Because yeah, like that's. I think it's a possibility that, like, even if you, like I said, like, let's say you get like no picks, fine, and a suspended head coach, which is a possibility. You have to be ready to pivot, and not just that. You and I spoke about this not that long ago. Beyond, we were talking. You mentioned, those 10 names could be a lot of assistants. You got to rehire your entire coaching staff. That's not gonna smooth over well. I almost want to do like a game one of these days. We don't have the time for that, where it's like, you pretend to be Masai, I pretend to be Ed Rogers. And how do you pitch this to me? How was your trip from Africa? So, did you see the news? Yeah. So, JD, your thoughts? Sorry.
I guess if Darko and Masai miraculously survive this ordeal, I would love for them to have like a rally downtown and go FNY, just like what they did before, like Brooklyn.
Yeah, exactly. Or like like I said before the thing starts, and hashtag justice for Darko shirts being passed around. You'll see that hashtag flying around. Either way, great for the memes. Of course, great for our NBA, Reddit NBA. This will be one for the ages for sure, regardless of what happens. Now, really quickly, before we get to a close, we're also talking about just on the Knicks side, cybersecurity. They should have much better protocols put in place. I'll just say that their SharePoint site should not be shareable to the outside organizations. We don't have to go through the whole litany of what that is, but they're also, incompetent as well.
Yes. I'll tell you what, like every team, they're doing their information security policy check right now. They're doing their cybersecurity check right now.
For sure. Any final thoughts anyone wants to talk about at all?
Julius Randle goes left. I don't need Synergy Sports to tell me that.
And we downloaded a file where Siakam spins.
Yes. That's beyond.
Nothing, man. Let's leave it at that, man. This guy's closing down the show, man. It's good.
Okay. With that being said, people, give us your thoughts. Like I said, we're not accusing people of anything. This is just what's out there. We'll see what happens, which is with everything. This is going to be a very interesting thing. And I think you're going to see some updates fairly soon because of the nature of this case, which is kind of good because you don't have to wait for years and years and years. It's probably going to move faster than the Trump case. So with that being said, keep tuning in on Basketball Rewind. We'll probably have some Olympic dates. This was filmed on the Tuesday before we play. So we play, I mean, it's late Tuesday, but we play in a couple days. Yeah.
The World Cup.
Yeah. Don't worry, people. Oh man, that would be bad if it was. I mean, it's already bad, but yeah. So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, give us your thoughts, and that's been it. So take care and stay tuned on this news because, like Masai says, don't put your phone down. Take care.